been making a couple of videos recently about language and just how it functions really. And I've been looking at some other people's videos about language, Professor Anton's, Soulfetcher's, a few others, and they've all been really helpful in moving my thinking on, or changing it, or doing something to it, which is always interesting. And what I'm interested in right now is a kind of I don't know what I'm interested in. I'm interested in a kind of model of language really, and communication, and the different ones that seem to be operating, or different, I guess, metaphors that operate to understand what language is, or that I feel myself deploying. I don't really know that much about language and linguistics, so I'm really outside my comfort zone with this stuff. But I mean, certainly the easiest one, the one that I've come across, and which I've heard widely disparaged at least, is this idea that language is a kind of container for meanings. You have these ideas and concepts and meanings in your head, and you wrap them up in words and language like a package, and then you pass that package to somebody else, and they unwrap it in their head and take the meaning out, and that's communication. Now I know that's really naive and it's been critiqued, but it does feel like that sometimes, I have to say. Particularly on YouTube, you know, where you get the chance to kind of re-edit your packaging and check to make sure the words capture, contain, you know, kind of describe, all that kind of stuff, what you're on about. So whether it's true or false, it feels there's a kind of intuitive sense to it, which has got to influence at least how I'm thinking about it. The second is, again, one I don't know much about, but somebody mentioned to me a few days ago, which is, well, they referred to as interactional linguistics, which I'm going to have to find out more about. But from what I understand, it's and I guess I'm borrowing from some other stuff I do know a little bit more about. It's an understanding of language as not distinct from other kinds of relationships and contacts and expressions and engagements. It's something that emerges from social situations and contexts. So rather than language being a kind of parcel that's passed from one person to another, it's something that's created dynamically within the engagements that take place in conversations and dialogues. And again, I do feel that. I mean, that has an intuitive appeal to me as well. Not so much in terms of an individual YouTube video, but more in terms of, that doesn't make any sense, but in terms of, if you look across at a number of videos simultaneously, certainly if I look at many of my subscription videos, I kind of feel the themes developing and emerging across, laterally across them. So even though these people, I guess, aren't in direct communication, there's a sense in which the meanings are being patterned and the language is being patterned and distributed throughout this horizontal system, as if we're all running down the road together, kind of, and the sounds that our feet are making as we run are creating patterns and rhythms and that kind of thing. Okay, so that's something to do with interactional linguistics. The third thing, which is the one I'm most interested in actually, and which I know nothing about, and who knows, probably it's bollocks, is the idea of language as a sensory modality. That speaking has something in common with seeing, or something in common with hearing, or something in common with touching. I'm not really sure what I mean by that really, it's just a guess. It just feels sometimes that when I'm speaking, particularly when I'm speaking to myself like I do on these videos, it feels like I'm trying to reach out and touch something that's slightly shrouded or slightly in the dark, and I'm trying to kind of move through that and penetrate that and run kind of linguistic hands over the surface of something I can't quite see properly, in the hope of being able to see it more clearly. So there's something to do with that, by analogy, a bit like that. I guess another way to think of it in relating to that would be as a kind of version of sonar, because of course sensory modalities, you know, seeing and hearing, although they're not passive, they feel passive. They feel like you just kind of sit here and all this stuff pours in through your eyes and pours in through your ears. And sensory modalities can just sit there inert like microphones and cameras. No, it's not quite true, but that's what it feels like. Whereas language and speaking feels completely active. It feels like I'm churning this and spouting this stuff forward, not receiving stuff. But as I say, the nearest analogy to a sensory modality that is active is the sonar that you get in bats and whales and that kind of animal, where they are making sounds, but those sounds are part of their sensory organs. Obviously bats just make a particular chirping sound, and whales make the sounds that they make. Actually, I'm not sure if whales do use sonar, maybe they do. Anyway, but maybe we've got this really complex sonar, or maybe there's a way of thinking of it as a kind of complex sonar, where I'm just kind of spewing forth this whole range of sounds shaped by grammar and syntax and history and all that kind of stuff, and I'm just hearing it bouncing off the world around me, kind of metaphorically speaking, and responding according to whether I think it fits. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense actually. Anyway, that's just how I'm thinking about language. Language as a parcel, it passes from one person to another. Language as a property that emerges through communication and engagement, particularly communication and engagement with the human beings. And then language is a sensory modality that reaches out into the world and shapes and runs its sonic fingers over the world.